And welcome into another edition of Drawing a Crowd, the business of sports tourism. I'm Stan the Fan Charles at Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me via Zoom is Terry Hasseltine, the Executive Director of Maryland Sports. Terry, how are you?
I'm doing outstanding, Stan. Appreciate you putting this all together again and welcoming our good friend here, John.
All right. Well, John David is our special guest today. He's the President and Chief Executive Officer of Sports ETA, Sports Events and Tourism. And they've got a big event coming up here. The entire industry is swarming into Baltimore next week on September the 23rd through the 25th. And we're going to talk about this summit of all the tourism events and sports industry with John David in just a moment. But Terry, before we do that, I want to congratulate you and get some comments on this rendering of the Maryland Cycling Classic that just took place this past weekend.
Yes, thank you, Stan. We had a fantastic showing for the Maryland Cycling Classic. We had a lot of things that happened this year for the first time. One of the first cities to ever bounce back twice we came out of COVID, two editions of the Cycling Classic. Then last year we had to take a hiatus because of the bridge collapse in the Olympic schedule. So here we are, we bounced back in 2025, bigger and stronger than we've ever been before. This year we delivered the inaugural women's race to a photo finish, which is huge. Putting the women on the same circuit as the men the same day, same course was phenomenal. Great competition throughout the day, shown in over 80 plus countries across the globe. And then we had a great men's event too, where we had another photo finish at the end. So 8.5 hours of epic racing on the streets of Baltimore, surrounded by community activities with our friends at Kaiser Permanente. We had a bike jam. We gave away 50 bikes into two different schools. And then we did two schools where we did a health and wellness and bike clinics, and the like. And then we had the first ever women's African team race on U.S. soil from Benin. And we had a little bit of reception for them on Wednesday night. So you put the 4 days together with epic racing. The city of Baltimore shined, and I have to give a big shout out to Mayor Scott and his entire leadership team because the city was ready. They stepped up huge, and then the racing was phenomenal, and we executed on every level. And as I said throughout the weekend, world-class cities and world-class destinations do world-class things. And that's exactly what we did last week with the Maryland Cycling Classic.
And John, I hope you'll be patient with us. I just want to ask you one more question, Terry. I don't want to turn this into a negative at all, but you were a little disappointed, and I know you were, at how negative some of the media was surrounding, like, don't come down to the city because traffic's going to be a mess. Isn't it the job of them to be a little bit more, in a case like this, more of a cheerleader and do a better job of explaining to people how to navigate tricky traffic situations?
Absolutely. As I said, big time cities, all across the country, and John can, contest to this. When you do big time events and you're bringing high profile opportunities to a city or to a destination, there's going to be some upset in the environment because, you have to close roads or you have to move traffic in different patterns. But the economic return and the visibility return that these events bring outside the market are what lead to the conversations about getting new folks to look at your destination as a can do and willing to do environment. And so that's where the media needs to uplift us to say, if we can do this, we can do that. And that way it opens the door to rights holders and event owners. As the head of US Cycling said to us, all roads to LA 2028 go through Baltimore because of the show that we put on for the racers on the streets of Baltimore this weekend. So the fact that the head of our national governing body in the United States is saying all roads to the 2028 Olympics in LA come through Baltimore, that's a testament we did something really awesome. And we uplifted Baltimore along the way, not just with racing, but with community activities and giving kids bikes and also putting them on the road to show how, having a bike and being around a bike is so critical and so important. And it was part of our childhood. It should be part of their childhood too.
All right. Terry, let's welcome in our guest, John David. He again is the president and chief executive officer of Sports ETA. The Sports Event and Tourism Association are bringing their the entire summit here on September 23rd to 25th into Annapolis. I'll let you welcome him and ask the first couple questions and talk a little bit about the business of events.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to welcome John David. He's been a stalwart in the industry, you know, just as long as I have, not even longer. And he and I have had the good fortune of serving on the board of this organization when it was in its nascent stages. And now he's gone up, obviously, to sit in the head honcho seat as the president and CEO of Sports ETA. And I can't think of a better guy to have on the podcast than John David. And the reason I say that, because not only is he a friend, but he also has elevated our organization in ways that, were needed at a time in which we are transitioning from another brand to a new brand. And how do you get new people involved? And John, you've been, obviously in the role now for, what have we talked, 2 years now?
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. So, what has been your biggest learning as you've been, taking on the helm of Sports ETA and navigating where some of these conferences that are owned by the organization land? And what's the importance when you pick a city? What are some of the top benchmark things you look for when you select a destination?
Terry, the biggest thing is who's your partner. And I mean, and look, I'm sitting here looking at the slate of speakers that we have, of educators that we have, of these phenomenal, subject matter experts that we've coordinated with you and your team, and with the team in Annapolis, and with the entire state. I mean, in what was Stanford, from your perspective, I think what was so unique about us coming into this is Terry took a very, very special approach to supporting our event. He goes, we want to make this a statewide event. It's Annapolis is the host. We're going to honor, we're going to support that, but how can we really incorporate the entire state to showcase all of the greatness of who and what we are? And you can just see that within the content. So that learning lesson for me is pick the right partner. Pick the right partner, and you're going to do great things. And everybody on the teams within the state of Maryland, and with Annapolis, they've just rolled up their sleeves and been just phenomenal. And so as we move forward, we're going to have an RFP that's going to be going out soon for our annual symposium event. And we're really, you can see right in when you read the RFP of us leaning in to that, and to really working to identify, who the right member is to execute a great event with. I mean, you need the great things that the destination has to offer. You need that authenticity, those type of things. That's what we love. Where 4S is going to be at the Graduate Hotel, that's has those essence of the Naval Academy built into it. We're doing our STS certification course, and where we're going to be able to tour the Naval Academy. I mean, that's such a special experience for somebody. And Stan Terry's heard me say this 1,000 times, but one of the things that we share with all of our members is that in sports tourism we have one job, and that is to create a lifelong memory. And when you have the right partner, you have the right destination, you're going to cultivate that every time. And that's our goal, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, we appreciate it, and we're excited about what the 23rd through the 25th is going to be like in Annapolis and the like. But John, obviously you've been around the industry, the sports tourism and sports event industry, your background with USA BMX prior to taking on the role here. What are some of the things you've seen evolve in our industry over the last probably 5 to 7 years? A little bit of COVID in there, obviously that transcendence. But what are some of the big things you see trending out of the industry right now that might not have been there 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I think that the number one thing that you recognize 10 years ago to today is, in the greater tourism world, the significant understanding of the power of sports tourism. The pandemic crushed destinations. And the destinations that were able to host sporting events not only helped heal their community faster, but they helped heal the economics of tourism faster. And really, anyone in tourism will tell you that sports saved the day, because sporting events came back first, and the rebound was profound, and it worked. And I think that's number one. Everywhere we go, we are seeing destinations and communities doubling down on sports tourism. The other thing that's part and parcel to that, Terry, that I would tell you, and it's something that we advocate so heavily on, is when you really tell the story, of who and what we are and what we do. It's exactly what you were just saying, Terry, in terms of the cycling event, of the give back, of putting those bicycles in kids' hands, giving them that opportunity. In case after case after case of great events that get hosted, that there's always the support to the local community. It's not just, economic impact. It's not just tax revenue. It's not just heads and beds. It's facility improvements. It's new facilities being developed, but it's elevating the community. And when you compare us to the greater tourism world, we love business conventions. Those are fabulous. But business conventions aren't going in and helping, offset a new scoreboard at a high school stadium because that works for this great event, but also for others. Business events aren't developing and elevating a new indoor sports complex. Sports tourism is. And so those are a couple of the primary things. And the other one that you can't not talk about is private equity investment. Because at the same time, while destinations and communities in general are recognizing that power of sports tourism, so are entrepreneurs. People are looking at sports tourism and say, man, this is a great place to invest. I mean, and there's no better example than what Ripken has done, and then now what is now Unrivaled Sports, where you have major private equity organizations that are coming in and investing in sports, and they're changing our dynamic. I mean, it is a different day, and we have to analyze that and look at that and understand as destinations how we manage that, but in a lot of ways they are doing a tremendous amount of good.
John, I wanted to jump in and ask you uh, a unique aspect of something you do. You're bringing all these organizations together from around the country, but these are organizations at their heart, they're competing with one another to obtain some of these events that come in. But yet, I find from talking to Terry and doing the podcast over the years with him now, a couple of years, that there's an incredible spirit of cooperation even amongst these people that compete with one another. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Stan, it is the damnedest thing, my friend. It is so fascinating because when you look at it, you also have some of the most competitive people you're ever going to be around. We put out pickleball courts at a conference, and these people are they're coming away, stretching and they're ready to compete. They want to win a championship. So many of them are former athletes, and these are
Yep.
some of the most passionate people that care about their destination and about bringing that event to it. However, there is a spirit of cooperation within the Sports Events and Tourism Association like you have never seen. And exactly to your point, one of the greatest things I love, particularly too, about this event with 4S is with among all of our events, you see that spirit on its greatest scale. You literally see destinations coming up, finding another destination. Say, hey, I know you hosted this in the past. I know you may be bidding on it. Could you tell me a little bit about it? And they literally will open the playbook. I mean, I have seen destinations send over budgets, send over the bids. Hey, you know what? Here it is, full transparency. We hope this helps. And it's because our people believe in the greater good of sport.
Yeah.
They believe in the greater good of what they do, that, hey, maybe another destination could take this event, do a little bit better with it. We'll compete. We're going to put our best bid forward, but they really recognize, that growth. I'll give you a prime example. I was just in Utah, and Utah is aspiring to be like Maryland, because Maryland really is on the forefront of a state that is so collaborative in its efforts, and it's a Maryland wins first mentality. And in Utah, we just had that conversation with those folks, and they're excited. They have a great group of sports tourism professionals, and they will openly and honestly say when a bid might come through, hey, you know what? Why don't you check up north with Davis County? They probably have a little better facility than we have, and we just think, for as a rights holder, you're going to be in a better spot than we are. Now they could host it, but they would rather see the state win first, and that really state first mentality. That's just a really a core of who and what we are, and we're proud of that.
Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, you've been in this role since 2023, and in doing a little bit of homework in my notes, you've seen the membership grow to this group by more than 20%. How have you accomplished that? And what is the purpose of growing your group? What does strength in numbers do to your group?
Yeah, great question, Stan. With our team, when we sat down and I started in day one, we had a mission to go out and to ensure that our members, first and foremost, above all, had a trust in the association, and knew that we had competent, passionate professionals that were there, that worked for the association, that were there to support them. And we wanted to go out and truly showcase that, A, we've got a pretty good toolbox right now for them to utilize to be better professionals, better organizations, but B, we're going to really give you even more tools in the future. And our team has just buckled down, and they have doubled down on those efforts. Our communication, our outreach, we told our communications team, just go. I mean, go. We took the handcuffs off, and we really let them go. From my perspective, I'm on the road a tremendous amount. And it just mentioned last week I was in Utah. This week I've been in Utah. And next week I'm in Tennessee and DC. We're out on the road and we're listening. In every place I go, I learn. Every moment with somebody like Terry that's a seasoned professional. I mean, I'm secretly peppering questions and making mental notes and coming back to our team and finding those next resources. And so as we've had a chance to go out there and enhance our portfolio, our toolbox, people are recognizing, that benefit. I think that's really what's driving, that growth more than anything. And I'm just really proud of the efforts of the team. But it's truly number one, it's listening to your membership base, understanding what they need, and striving to do the best you can by them. That's what's been working for us.
And growing that group, how does that help you?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it brings in a more diverse pool of ideas and thoughts. That which is huge for us because one of the things that is so unique about our organization, Stan, is we truly represent the entire ecosystem of sports tourism. We don't just represent Terry and Terry's style of organizations. We also have 200 to 250 of those event rights holders. We have our industry partners, which contain hoteliers, third parties, technology companies. And so as we open up that ecosystem, we're just bringing more people into that beautiful tent that is sports tourism to exchange those ideas, to learn and to grow together, and to be this great connector. And so the benefit of that connection, the benefit of that unique thought prospect from a new member or from our expansion in parks and recreation, it helps the entire ecosystem. And Parks and Rec is such a great example of that. We've opened the floodgates with an initiative for advocacy within Parks and Recreation. 80% of our members told us that they're utilizing park and recreation facilities, number one, for their major events that they're bringing into town. However, the association had never directly communicated to Parks and Recreation to say, hey, these are great events. We know that traditionally you're focused on local residents, but let me tell you why these partnerships can be so valuable. And so we're out there speaking at state tourism or state parks and recreation programs and things like that because by growing that membership, by increasing that advocacy, it helps Terry and it helps Visit Baltimore, it helps Visit Annapolis have better partnerships in their own communities, and it's return on mission every day.
Tara, go ahead.
So, John, I mean, you're spot on. Thank you for the accolades in there too. But you know, the next decade is bringing to the United States something that we haven't probably seen in a long, long time. Between the World Cup, followed by LA 2028. We know we have Utah down the road and the Winter Olympics. We have the Women's World Cup. You know, rugby's in the queue. So, what kind of things is Sports ETA doing to capitalize on the decade of international sports? And what kind of new initiatives are you bringing to the table with this forecast of what's about to hit our country that we haven't seen before?
It's so exciting when you look at this next decade. I mean, from right now with World Cup coming, being booked in, with the Winter Olympics in Utah. One of the things in sport that we've all seen is so many of these great international federations for about the last decade, honestly, have been hosting their world championships, a ton of them really in the Middle East. They've been going to some of these governments, Azerbaijan, Qatar, others, where it was highly lucrative to go and do that. And you can only do that so long before you need to come to the major markets. No different than those major organizations like FIFA, like the Olympics, that have looked back at the United States and said, look, we've got to get back in the United States. It's the world's largest media market. It's the world's largest economy. It's the largest numbers of participation in most of our sports. We've got to go back. So just as you have with those mega events, you have so many great international federations that have phenomenal events. Could be the World Championship of Road Cycling, that's been hosted, nearby before in Virginia. Could be so many of these different type of events that they want to take a look at that. Now, candidly, and Terry, this, we've talked about this. The association had long just ignored that. And that was one of the things you and I had talked to, and several other just absolute, legends in the industry were like, look, John, you got to go fix that. And we are. So we went in. The first step that we made is we brought in Janice Burke from Houston, Texas. that has arguably hosted some of the best international events, large and small, mega as well as, could be table tennis. That she's brought in, and she really understands the international market. So one, it was bringing in the expertise. So we're starting by overlaying education. That's our first pillar within the association is education. So we're bringing in a great white paper that helps define, some of those terminologies, the things that our destinations need to understand. Also, too, to educate that you don't have to be a major market, to host one of these great international events because they can be scalable. And quite frankly, in some of them, that might be a better fit to be in a tier two market. So doing that, we're also going to be going to Lausanne, Switzerland with a handful of destinations that have shown major interest in that in doing a USA fam tour where we're bringing about 15 to 20 destinations. We're going to be meeting directly with international federations in their home bases, and celebrating what the United States can be as a sport. And then really the final crescendo to that is for the first time ever, we are going to be bringing international federations to the United States for our symposium. And it has been, we've had such a phenomenal reception when we've talked to these international federations and we've said, look, we have an event that has 500 destinations in one building, and they're all interested in learning more about your organization. Every one of them is like, 500 in one location? We're like, absolutely. And they're excited to meet you, and it's where do you sign? So we're thrilled with that, and we're also unveiling an entire portfolio on education to support events, to support destinations in what's coming with FIFA World Cup. We had a great webinar that was introductory in its fashion to kind of kick things off with some of the best international organizations that are familiar with maximizing those opportunities. And we're actually going to be unveiling a podcast series very soon on that with about 8 episodes, step by step how to maximize the income of the opportunity that's in with FIFA World Cup.
Terry, you got one more, and then I'll
Yeah.
ask one more, and we'll let John David go.
So I want to piggyback on where you're going with education, John. I mean, obviously, the one of the biggest values that the organization brings is about creating tools and resources for the membership. Obviously, we created an online program. We got certain certifications that come to the program. Can you give, if you're sitting out there going, this Terry guy, this John guy, they're part of this thing, where are they getting their tools and what's the matrix of the education that they're getting? Can you give a little bit of background onto the online platform and STS and where that's going in the future?
Yep, absolutely. Again, education's the primary benefit of who and what we are. One of the things we're so excited for, Terry, is I think we've got almost 75 first-time attendees coming to our 4S Summit. I mean, what a testament to the growth of the organization. So, meeting them where they're at within their journey, right? I mean, critical to who and what we are. So one of the things I definitely inherited that I was thrilled about is a solid online platform where we've got great, and we've got 30 plus courses that are online from everything from introductory to sports tourism to finance and sports tourism to adaptive sports, a great growth market that we're seeing phenomenal opportunities in. Sustainability. You can't go into an event, contract without understanding and knowing sustainability. We even have a 4 course program where you can become, quote unquote, sports ETA sustainably certified. So we have leaned in on education, and we're diving deep by listening to what the members need and finding that education. And to your point, we do have a certification program where you can earn that accreditation of STS, which is a sports tourism strategist. And so we feel great about where we're at today in coming in with great programming. Moving forward, though, one of the things that we certainly have identified is that for people like you and I, there's not much on the content that we're throwing out there that we probably haven't seen. Some, but not much. And we have really just with our staff, at our board retreat that we just hosted, we presented with our great director of education, Christina Velasquez, a brand new program in terms of where education will go in the future. And it really is, it's a three-tiered system where it's introductory level with an introductory level, an intermediate level, and a master's level. And we're thrilled about that. We wanted to flesh it out with the board, which they loved the concept that staff had developed. And over the next year, we're going to be creating the bones and the structure of that. And in year 2, we'll be unveiling the new core structure for that. So we're thrilled about where it's going and what it's going to be. But more importantly, we're going to be giving the members what they need and what we're hearing them tell us they need.
Fantastic.
Just wanted to recap. We're talking to John David, the president and CEO of Sports ETA. Their summit, 4S Summit, is coming up in Annapolis, hosted by the Maryland Sports Commission. Visit Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. It'll be held September 23rd to 25th. I've got one more question for you, John, and that is, after an event like this, you mentioned you got 75 new attendees, which is unbelievable. I mean, that's an amazing number. What kind of energy do these people come out of an event like this with, moving forward? Does this really energize them?
Stan, it's incredible. I mean, and I sit back and just watch it happen, and I feel like I have the best seat in the house, and I feel so humbled and lucky to do it. But especially these first timers, for example, that I'll give you. Imagine being a young professional. You're going to your first ever professional conference in this new position that you've
And they
got.
get to meet Terry Hasseltine. I mean,
Right. No, and that's and really, and what's so great too about Terry and so many of the legends of our industry is that they support these events. They come
yeah,
into these events and they're sought after. I mean, you will see people waiting in line to try to grab Terry. Hey, can I ask you a question because of that experience that he has? And so many great leaders like Terry will commit to being there for these events. But I love watching them find their tribe. That's to me what's special because we bring them in. We have a special little a moment that we have a special reception with these first timers. We talk to them, and then you can see throughout the week them find their people. And then what's so fun is that at the next program, I see that same group together again, and the next program, and then they're together for years.
yeah.
And there's friendships that are developed. But the greater good of the event is that the attendees they walk out of there with an energy. It's a battery charger. They are excited to go back to their destination to employ what they learned. And you know what they become too. And I think this is what you can never undervalue. They will become some of the greatest advocates of Annapolis
Yep.
in the state of Maryland you've ever seen because we've cultivated through Terry's team, through the great team with in Annapolis, we've cultivated a fabulous, event that's really going to showcase how great of a city that is.
John David, President and CEO of Sports ETA. Good luck with the event coming up September 23rd to 25th. Terry, is that about do it, or do you have something to add?
No, I just want to thank John for taking the time out of his busy travel schedule to shine a light on, what's coming to Annapolis, Maryland here in the next couple of weeks. But more importantly, just want to thank him for the leadership that he's providing our industry because it takes guys like John to set the standard of excellence so that we can emulate it in our markets. And therefore, when we come together as a collective unit, we just strengthen our industry. So, John, thank you for all you do, and thank you for the industry you serve.
Likewise, my friend.
Terry, any chance you'll be inviting John for the Maryland 5-Star coming up, which I know we're going to talk about in early October?
John has an open invitation to attend anything that Maryland's hosting. So yes, he has an open door policy. We just got to get on his travel schedule, which always seems opposite of when we're doing really great things. So we'll fix that in the future.
Absolutely.
John, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck with the summit.
Thank you, Stan.
All right.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of Drawing a Crowd, the Business Sports Tourism. For John David, Terry Hasseltine, I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Press Box. We'll see you soon.